All right, guys. Well, we are continuing on in our class in Living by the Book, and we're in chapter 20. And last time we actually started what to look for. What to look for, or 6 things to look for as you're studying the Bible. And let me just state them here. 6 things. Number 1, look for things that are emphasized. 2, look for things that are repeated. 3, look for things that are related. 4, look for things that are alike. 5, look for things that are unlike. 6, look for things that are true to life. And the first one we said, looking for things that are emphasized, that was the last class. And you use a hand just to kind of remember these key points. And number 20, or chapter 20, things that are repeated. That's what we're going for now, things that are repeated. So you can look at the diagram here. Things that are emphasized, things that are repeated. Chapter 20. He says there's probably no tool of teaching more powerful than repetition. If I want to make sure that you can catch on to what I have to say, I'll repeat it over and over, again and again, time after time. Repetition reinforces. That's why the second clue to look at for whenever you come to the biblical text is look for things that are repeated. Have you ever noticed how often Jesus repeats things to his disciples over and over and over again? So things that are repeated. There's about four different things he talks about. Number 1, terms, phrases, and clauses. Look for terms, phrases, and clauses that are repeated throughout the text as you're studying the Bible. For instance, by faith. So you look for those clauses or phrases that are repeated because we know that's important. If Jesus said it once, it's super important. If he says it's 3 times, if he said it 3 times, wow, it's extremely important. So look for terms, look for phrases, look for clauses that are repeated because they're important. Number 2, characters. Characters. Look at the characters and study them. Find out as much as you can about the characters in the Bible. For instance, you think about Barnabas. His name means son of encouragement, right? And he was an encourager. When no one else gave Paul a chance, Barnabas still did. And so he came alongside him. He was an encourager, and that tells us a lot about his heart, his life, his goal, his character, his demeanor. And so look for terms, phrases, and clauses. Look for characters, and I'm talking about in the context of repeating. Number 3, look for incidences and circumstances. Just look for things that are, again, repeated, incidences and circumstances. And number 4, look for patterns. Look for patterns. And so here's a pattern. He talks about Saul and David in 1 and 2 Samuel. Whatever Saul does wrong, David does right. Right? You ever notice that going through Samuel, 1 and 2 Samuel? Whatever David does right, Saul does wrong, and vice versa. The writer uses juxtapositions to show that although God acceded to the people's pleas for king by designated Saul, it would later be David who reflected God's own heart. So look for patterns that are repeated as you're studying the Bible. Because really in the New Testament, Old Testament passages, those things that are repeated, it's basically the writer's way of pointing out what matters the most and what's most crucial and important. So the second step, look for things that are repeated. Look for things, number 1, that are emphasized, and look for things, number 2, that are repeated as you're studying and digging in to God's Word. And so next week, guys, we're going to be in chapter 21, talking about things that are related. God bless.